Okay, for those of you who are joining us for the first time, this is actually a hybrid of a BBB webinar and one of the series that I want to run for business owners about how to get more out of their marketing. So we're not a technically a skills webinar, but you know, we've shared it with BBB because Ben was coming in through that journey over time. These webinars are designed to help you do something within your marketing. It's to help you get more out of your content, and they're to help you grow your reach. And that is definitely what we're here to talk about today, because Ben is the founder of Missing Lettr. And for those of you who have not seen or tried or used Missing Lettr before, Missing Lettr is a tool that takes your blog post and it creates a massive amount of suggested posts. Not massive, but it takes 12 months or 2 weeks or 2 years. And as Ben said at the start of this webinar, we have been Missing Lettr users pretty much since the start. It's a great platform. It saved my team originally 8 hours a week when we first started back 3 or 4 years ago, Ben. And it's saved us even more time since with the different add-ons and features that we've been adding. One of the things that I love that Ben has just introduced is Postbox, and Postbox is about sharing your content and getting out there. And if you've been following me for a while on YouTube, you might have seen that I've recommended different tools like Q Promote and those ones to be able to do this. But this brings it in with your social scheduler, and it brings it directly in with Missing Lettr, and a tool that we already use and love. And not only are we going to explore how to use it today, we're going to explore what the benefit is of sharing other people's content, as well as you getting your content seen by other people along the way. Because when it comes to the world of social media, there is only one good thing. The content only goes as far as you share it. So there is lots of good things, but yeah, the content only goes as far as you share it. Ben, I'm going to let you have a minute to introduce yourself to everyone, and then we might dive into our conversation. You cool with that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah, great intro, because I think you're absolutely right. It is about what you do with your content once you've published it. That's really the thing that matters. Now, obviously, the quality of the content and everything else will dictate to a certain extent how much amplification and to what extent it goes viral and everything else. But you've got to at least sort of start doing something. What I want to kind of get out of this this talk today is that I don't really like salesy sort of things. So I really, you know, tell me if this ends up feeling too salesy or too sort of pitchy or anything. That's not the point of this. It's more to get us thinking about some of the things we might want to start doing with our content. Missing Lettr was born 3 or 4 years ago because of this desire I had to kind of just not waste time and to with an effort already put into the content that we were creating, and to actually start thinking about what sort of plan might we need to come up with, or might we want to come up with, to really amplify that content. And that kind of ethos still remains, and it's still something that keeps me up at night, to you know, when my kids aren't, or my dog isn't, or anything else. You know, how can we get more out of our content? How can we really amplify that content and get the most value from it? As Linda said, you know, it's sharing it is the first step, but there are lots of different things that we can do, and that's kind of what I want to touch on here. So it's more the kind of the approach and the way that we think about our content and the opportunities that we have in order to get it into more people's sort of hands that I kind of want to focus on today. But there will be a demo element. So and yeah, with people on the screen as well, and on Facebook Live, any questions, just keep it nice and fluid. I think that's the main thing.
And let's start with the foundations of shareable content and what should be in a shareable content. And for those of you who are in my Be the Expert challenge, and I'm seeing a few faces in here, this is going to be very on target for what we're talking about at the moment, about creating content that engages and providing valuable content to the world of social media. So what do you think when you're providing a piece of content or a blog post or something in the world of social media, or even a YouTube video? What do you think is a really cool component? What's the key pieces we need to put into that piece of content?
Is that a general question, or is that
general question for you?
Oh, for me. Okay, just wasn't sure of the format. I wasn't quite sure whether this was like a round table. And
yeah, we played a bit different. Okay. Well, and then I'm gonna. Well, we can have a chat with others and see what they think at the same time. Cool. This is our first one. We can call it whatever we like.
Well, I guess I would always approach questions like that and first think about the audience that it's intended for. You know, who are you writing for? What is the intended audience? and what do they care about? What are the pain points that they actually that keeps them up at night? And then that, for me, should be the thing that drives the content itself and would inform the titles that you use, the thumbnails you use, and pretty much everything. It should all be about, who is this for?
Who is this for? So no one writes anything else out today. When next time you're doing a social post, I would love a post-it note, for those of you who know me and my post-it notes, on your desk for every time you're creating content. Who is it for? Blog posts, social media posts, videos, whatever you're creating. Who is it for and why is it relevant? Because that's the other thing. Why is it relevant? Has anyone else got any other tips about what they think is when they're putting together those pieces of social media content? I mean, you can learn from Ben and I, but you can also jump in and chime in if you want to.
I guess the big thing for me is, for what purpose? Why are we doing the post? Why do we want to interact? Yep.
Yeah, it's got to be relevant. I mean, if there was ever a time to make sure that your content is relevant, now is it. And if it's not today, it'll be tomorrow, because every day that goes by, the amount of content that is being created and shared and, you know, and just created in the first place, whether it's video, imagery, blog post, ebook, there is just so much of it. So we are kind of custodians, if you will, of the digital web that lives out there and exists out there. And so, you know, it's our responsibility for those that are creating content to really think carefully about, is this actually useful? Is it relevant? Is it meaningful? Does it actually, you know, answer a question that we know our audience care about? Does it provide value?
It is a big value. Value. You've got me on that particular point. Okay. The thing is, and we're talking about asking other people to share our content today and selecting content that we're going to share with other people. And Ben, even you and I in the start had that conversation about, you know, making sure that the pieces that we select are valuable pieces of content and match with our brand and our ethos with what's happening within Postbox. Now, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If someone's created a valuable piece of content and we want to share it, or it's another piece that we think would go through, and Louise has been doing this really well out of her with our marketing circle sessions and our how-to sessions, and she's been taking quotes. It's still weird to see myself quoted, but she takes quotes from these sessions and then turns them into pieces of social content that she can share with her audience. But it shows her audience that she's learning and she's upskilling and she's getting to know stuff. And by sharing someone else's content, we got the same situation. And it's all about engagement karma when it comes to this sort of stuff. And I don't know what Ben thinks about this one, but I think about, if I want people to share my stuff, then I have to be sharing other people's stuff as well. And that's why I've looked at tools like QPromote and those ones to be able to go, and now thankfully, because it's in Postbox and it's in the one tool, I'm happy. Why we're looking at it is because I need to be able to get through it. I also know what it's like time-wise to not have the time to go and, you know, have a keyword alert for everything that I want and then moving it over to my Twitter scheduling or my Facebook scheduling or anything like that. So it's been a really big lifesaver about valuable content. So when you're putting your content out, making sure that we're not putting our content out from the point of view of, I just really want to sell this next course, or I really want to sell this next component. It's what value does it add so that someone else will find it valuable for their audience to hit that share button. And remember, I keep saying this, guys, I know I harp on it. Don't forget the basics. Don't forget to introduce the basics and guide people through and give them an action that they can take away when it comes to valuable content. Now, I've written for Ben in the past, and I was very excited to see my What's a Blog post go into Postbox. So
yeah, you're one of the test cases. Yeah,
one of the test bunnies. But it was very exciting, you know, and I added it to my Postbox because my guest post was there. Louise shared that one too. So isn't that lovely that, you know, we've got that stuff happening now? But guys, value when it comes to your content is huge. Ben, what's your thoughts on that one? You said the word value, and I'm just needing to respond to a post down here. But what's your things on value when it comes to content? And what are we seeing with Postbox in the week and 2 weeks? It's been 2 weeks we've been running, haven't we?
2 weeks, yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think this is a really key sort of point, because on the face of it, you might think, well, what might my ideal customer or audience sort of find valuable? And you might be sort of drawn to a blog post that you've written, or an opportunity for you to write a blog post, or to let them know about your product because it's definitely right for them and it's the right sort of opportunity for them and it's a good price and everything else. But actually, when you think more broadly about how you can be valuable to your audience, and specifically across social media, it's this idea of engagement, and Linda, you mentioned engagement karma, and I think that's one element of it. But I think just broadly, this idea of how can we broaden our engagement with our audience? If we know that they care about knitting and cats, or whatever your core sort of demographic is. I'm actually a dog person, but I don't know why I always go to cat, but I'm a dog person. Let's say dogs and knitting, and you write about both of those things. Even within that sort of that sort of quite fine sort of niche, there are still going to be a whole swathe of things that you can talk about that maybe you haven't spoken about, but other people have. And whether it's, I think you were talking a minute ago, Linda, about sharing inspirational quotes. That's one way of sharing additional information with your audience that is in their wheelhouse, that is part of what they enjoy consuming and reading. And sharing other people's is a big part of that as well. So, because if you are the best will in the world, sort of publishing one blog post a month, or even one a week, you can't be sort of just talking about that across your social channels. It needs to be a healthy mix. So part of it is just pure manual, which is you going there and striking up conversations and start, having a leading question in your Facebook group and saying, hey, what do you think of X? And having that sort of conversation starter. Another part is talking about your stuff and sharing your content, your blog posts, your ebooks, your whatever they might be. But the other part is sharing other people's. It shows that, as you said, Linda, that you are a giver and a taker, that you are a sharer, that you are a purveyor of knowledge within this sort of space, that you know a bit more than maybe it first seemed. And that's a really powerful thing. I found also it almost adds a bit more gravitas when you start sharing your stuff. So if you'll need to work out what the ratio is for you, whether it's sharing 5 of your things and 10 of someone else's, or 1-to-1, whatever that is. But when you share yours and it's peppered amongst other people's content that you've shared, it often stands out a bit more. You can talk about it with a bit more conviction, because it doesn't come across as I'm just coming across and selling this blog post and come and read it and then share it. It's just one of many things that you've shared, one of many pieces of value that you've introduced into that audience. So yeah, I think it's a really key sort of part. But the thing that you will have to work out yourself, as I said before, is what that mix is, what works for you. And it will be different based on your audience, but also based on the segment that you're in and the topics that you're talking about. Some people in certain topics love lots of content. They literally, whether it's yours or someone else's, they just want to consume, the trendy topics of the day and get 20 tweets a day. And others might just want 1 or 2 a day. So that mix you'll need to work out. But broadening that mix just generally, I think, is a healthy sort of position to be in.
Healthy position. And I think, guys, the other thing when we talk about this, I want to talk about the fear factor, Ben, because the fear factor of sharing someone else's stuff and they'll go and buy from that person rather than buying from me. There is enough audience out there. And we were even saying that because you guys got a very, very special deal that no one else has seen to sign up to Postbox today. And I'll pop the link in and I'll pop it in again later. But we were talking about, it's not, it's about value, and we're not worried about whether people are going to buy from someone else, because the reality of it is, if you share one Twitter post or something from someone else during this period of time and they went and bought from that other person, the messaging that you were sharing did not connect enough with them to be a client, and that is fine. Please listen to me again. It is absolutely okay for someone not to connect with your messaging and buy from you, because having the person who's not connecting with your messaging buy from you just because they didn't get another alternative is going to lead you to a headache full of clients. And I think that's a really key thing to understand. Don't be frightened that they're going to buy from someone who's got a slightly different opinion or a slightly different messaging to you. Celebrate it, knowing that you have just opened up the door to their better client, to the client that you was on your market, and all of those sorts of things. And if they resonate with I keep saying to people that you resonate with the build your profile overnight, build a 6-figure business in the next 3 days type strategy, that's great. I'm not your coach. But if you want a sustainable business and you want to get something from a marketing area, and Jane, I'm looking at Jane smiling, Ben, but she's just gone through my course creation stuff, and we slowed things down. We slowed things down to give her a more sustainable business and a more sustainable operation that she wasn't going to burn out from. And I'm looking at it because I'm also going, oh, I so want to know, how did the webinar go last night? Did it go well? Good. See, the coach in me wants to just go, yeah, webinar. But just bear that in mind. Don't be afraid of sharing other people's content for the point of losing business. Because two things that come down to that drive me absolutely crazy is, one, we're in a mode of fear when we're delivering our content, so therefore we're not flowing and we're not delivering our content naturally to people, and we restrict our people from learning the good stuff that maybe makes them realize that it's a little bit hard and they might want to work with us in the meantime. So you know, Murray Smith just put an announcement about Facebook embed stuff today. I can't reinvent the wheel. I don't have time to reinvent the wheel about what this Facebook embed stuff means, so I'm sharing Murray's stuff across all my platforms.
Yeah, I think there's two other things. Oh, sorry.
No, go for it.
No, okay, two other things I'd sort of add to that, because I think that's interesting. And for one, when you think about competitors, almost certainly you could quite easily just on the back of a napkin sort of draw primary competitors that you are aware of, and secondary and tertiary and everything else. And probably most of us would sort of notice when there is a primary, like an actual direct competitor cropping up in our newsfeed. And fine, you may not choose to literally, you know, give them sort of the PR, which is perfectly fine. But anyone who's not a literal direct, you know, in the same street as you, if it's a geographical based business or whatever it might be, I think own it, I think, as Linda's saying. But I think also when you have decided that you're going to start sharing other people's things, there's another sort of tactic that you can do to sort of own that authority almost over what you're sharing, even if they might be perceived as a secondary or tertiary competitor. And that's to comment as you're sharing it on the thing that's being spoken about in that content. So if they're talking about a really hot topic in your industry, if you're commenting on your opinion on their sort of slant on it, it adds to the conversation. So you're continuing to add that value, but it shows that, you know, you're a team player, but actually you have something additional to add to it. And it doesn't have to be much more than sort of saying, really like the way that they've approached this. This is an interesting insight. I've seen this work many times before. Now, I don't know what I'm talking about there, but it doesn't necessarily have to be something massively insightful, but just something that shows that you've connected with the content and that you're endorsing it and that you add something extra to it.
Absolutely. What's everyone
Where do we
thinking
go from here,
about
Linda? What do we do?
Give Ben the thumbs up. Sorry?
Where do we go from here? Shall we jump into showing some things, or what does everyone want to do?
Does everyone want to see how you can make this work?
On this?
Okay. Should we start at the start, Ben, and should we go into Missing Lettr and show the components of how that works and then delve into the Water Postbox?
Yeah, I think so. Now, I will try and keep the chat open, but Linda, do as well. Just
I will let you know.
Going too deep or anything. I really just want to open, for those who haven't seen this platform yet, just open your eyes, whether you use this or something else. Really, my goal here is just to get you sort of thinking about the sorts of things that you can do with content when sharing it and doing some other things like that. So if you feel like I'm going down a rabbit hole too much and just turning it into too much of a how-to kind of demo, which is not the intention, please let me know. As you've noticed, I can rabbit on a bit, so please do put your hand up, tell me to stop, shout, or do something, and I'll move on to the next bit. Cool. Okay, let me share my screen.
Okay, we got you. Yep, I'll manage the chat. You just do your stuff.
Perfect. Good. Okay, so right. So there are two things I'm going to talk about here today. One is Missing Lettr, the core product, and one is Postbox, which is the new. It's kind of an add-on to Missing Lettr that we launched just 2 weeks ago. But they both are there to solve this problem about amplifying your own content and answering that question. What do I do once I've published my blog post or my content, whatever that happens to be? How do I actually get it in front of more people? And that's really what Missing Lettr exists to solve. And there's a bunch of things that we'll be doing over the coming months to introduce additional ways to do that. But what I'll show you today is kind of what we do as it stands today. So Missing Lettr has been around for about 3.5 years. up until 2 weeks ago, it was all the campaign side of things, which I'll show you first. But as I say, as of 2 weeks ago, a new element to it called Postbox. So the primary part of Missing Lettr is this notion of a social media campaign, and this idea that you've written a blog post, so let's call it 1,000 words or whatever it happens to be, and you've probably invested a lot of time into thinking about the right language, the terminology, the phrasing, the imagery that you've associated with it. You've probably thought about it, and yet when we then need to start promoting it across social channels, what we probably don't want to do, because I care deeply about repeating mechanisms and not wasting time, what we probably don't want to do is then have to rethink what that tweet might need to be or what that social post might need to be, because we've already written the title, we've already written the blog post, we've already come up with great phraseology. So that's the heart at which Missing Lettr was born at, kind of 3 or 4 years ago, which is, hey, could we take that long form blog post, run some clever technology over it, so analyze it basically, and from that, pull out what we think might be really interesting hashtag suggestions, pull out those images that you've already associated or already uploaded with your blog, put out some interesting quotes and phrases that we think will work well, and take all of that as a library of social assets, if you will, and turn them into a whole 12 months worth, or whatever that time frame is that you care for, worth of social content that all you need to do is review and approve and edit if you want to, but for the majority, we'll just go, yeah, looks good, go. And at that point, once it's activated, just like you would with Buffer or anything else, we will now, with our own inbuilt social media scheduler, we will send it out, we will drip it out to your social media accounts over that 12 months. And the whole point of that is to, on the basic level, promote that blog post that you published and make sure that at the very least it has a promotional sort of strategy behind it. But also to make sure that that sort of life, sort of shop window, that lifespan, if you will, of that promotional opportunity isn't reduced just to the first day or two after you've published, but is actually drawn out for as long as possible. I forget the stats, but quite a while ago, I think it was Meet Edgar had on their landing page this notion of a half-life of a blog post that you publish it, you would let your audience know, and you'd see this immediate sort of spike in traffic, which would pretty much kick in within the first 24 hours and then almost immediately drop off, and would within about 48 hours would almost be non-existent. And yes, by blogging, we are in time contributing to SEO. And so you will start to see, if you're doing it right, more traffic over time, but we want to sort of really boost that a bit. And so creating a social campaign that lasts for a good 12 months or something for each blog post is a really, really healthy way of making sure that every blog post gets as much exposure as it can. So that's, in a nutshell, what Missing Lettr does. It takes your blog post all automatically, turns it into social content, and then sends it to you to review, make edits, and then we'll send it out for you. And we have analytics and everything to show you how many clicks we've generated and all that sort of stuff, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. I'll show you a screen or two in a second just so you can visualize what it looks like. But Linda, yep.
And I think it's really important to note too that this really takes care in the world of marketing. You know, Ben's a tech guy and a marketing guy. In the world of marketing, we say that 80% of your content creation, sharing your content, comes down to sharing it. So 20% of it is making it, the rest of it's going to be shop. And the other thing that, not when Missing Lettr started, but Twitter released an algorithm update two and a bit years ago now, I think it was, Ben, wasn't it? That you can't share the same post twice. So you can't just pop your post in and hope that it's going to be shared out to Twitter again and again. And this takes away, by creating these different posts, the opportunity for you to be able to be sharing your stuff in a unique way. And I know from our experience of using Missing Lettr, we would have missed some of the great quotes that Missing Lettr pull out of our blog posts and of our articles, and especially running an online magazine. From BBB's point of view, yeah, we edit, but we're editing a month in advance. No one knows what the social posts are going to be for that later. What Missing Lettr does is it takes it and it makes sure that we boost our campaign and we see those visits again and again and again.
It is fun to have published a blog post just minutes ago, and then sort of 15 minutes after that, receive an email from Missing Lettr with some suggested quotes, and go, oh, that's a pretty cool quote, and then sort of realize that that's a quote that you've written, you wrote yourself just sort of a few minutes ago. It's quite fun to see them being pulled out. But yeah, it's so important to sort of create a bit of a habit around it. And that word habit, if you're left to your own devices, certainly if I'm left to my own devices, I'm really good at sticking to sometimes, but I don't think that's the definition of habits, or at least forming a healthy one. So, a big part of Missing Lettr is to kind of take that off the table, that risk of you forgetting to promote each blog post and remind people about it long into the next year. Take that off the table and just kind of automate all of that process for you. Cool. So let's just show you I'll just breeze through this just so you can kind of visualize what that all means, because it kind of sounds cool, but what does it actually look like and everything else. So a bit like your sort of typical Kanban views, you've got your, this is where your campaigns live. So when you publish a blog post, they'll first end up in this drafts area, which basically means it's a campaign in draft mode, ready for you to review. So I'm just going to click into one here. I haven't actually looked at this one yet. And so we're in the campaign editor, and it's two pages. This first page is really just having you review the content and media that we've extracted from that blog post. So first of all, hashtags. We'll give you a good selection, but we generally recommend choosing between 1 and 3. You can turn them off entirely in the settings if you just don't like hashtags. That's perfectly fine. You can also do default hashtags and all that sort of thing. So we can reorder them, delete them, choose the one that the ones that we actually want. I'm just going to get rid of pretty much all of them really, just to keep things simple. So that's hashtags. Mentions. I think, was this one of your suggestions, Linda? Probably was. I think this one was.
This was my one.
So you can put in a mention and then have the opportunity to create the override for each social network, because sometimes the username is different if you happen to know what it is. We're building a library of the mentions, so if you're doing popular Microsoft or Apple or something, although they probably will have the same one for each, we will recommend what we think they are, but you can obviously all override it, which is just, again, totally optional. But if you know when you're promoting this blog post that you want to mention the author or mention a company that's mentioned in the blog post, you can do that here. Next, we have images. Oh, this particular one doesn't have any images in the blog post, so we didn't extract any, but you can upload additional ones. And really all you're thinking about is just either getting rid of the ones that we've pulled out that you don't want to promote, that you don't really properly represent your blog post, or adding additional ones. Next, and finally, we have the quotes. So these are quotes that we've pulled out from the blog post. And we've ranked them based on how well we think they'll perform, based on how relevant they are to the hashtags that we've pulled out, and a bunch of other sort of technology in there as well. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's right. And I always say this, that you will know your blog post more than anyone else. So if you scroll down, so the bold ones are the ones we've pre-selected, but there's a whole bunch of other ones that you might like to choose. So there might be this one here that you just love. So you can click the plus, and that's now added, and this number here will have gone up. And so you're just choosing your best bits of content. You can click into one if you've noticed a typo, put an exclamation mark in, or whatever you want to do. So you're basically just choosing your best content. Now, this is going to look a bit sort of, how does this translate? But all we're trying to train you to do is to think about the best that we've extracted, getting rid of the chaff that you don't really want to use. Once you're happy with that, we're going to click Build Campaign. But before we do that, just a couple of things to point out here. This is the campaign duration. So I mentioned before that it by default 12 months long, and that's what's being represented here by this sort of timeline. But you can change that. So we've got some other ones, and if you're on our pro plan, you can customize as well. So you can create a 2-week draft, 12 months. Yeah, you can do it here as well. So before you had to regenerate the whole campaign. So you can change that there. You'll see the dots change. And so yeah, that's kind of up to you to decide what is right for your audience. We found that 12 months is a pretty healthy starting point. Now, interestingly, for that default 12-month campaign, we're actually only, if you count, for the clever ones out there who've counted these dots already, there's actually only 9 posts throughout that 12 months that we will create social posts for and send them out to. Now, you might, again, for your audience, prefer to do twice as many as that, and that's perfectly fine. You can customize that. But again, we found a sweet spot of around sort of 9 or 10. That means that you're not, what we're not trying to do is automate things for the sake of automating. We're not trying to make you look like an automation machine, like a bot that's just churning out and promoting stuff for the sake of it. This is your audience, your connection, your brand. And so it's so important that we get that connection right and that it comes across as a natural sort of sharing approach. And so starting off with a smallish number is really important. And so we'll send something on day 0, day 3, 7, 14, and the gaps spread out a bit more as we get through that 12 months. But again, you can even change that. So you could distribute it to a slightly different way if you wanted to. So let's assume that we're happy with that. Yep.
Something cool to mention here too is that Missing Lettr doesn't just end like if you approve 5 campaigns, day 0 isn't going to come into effect on the moment that you've approved 5 campaigns. It will actually fill in the blocks from your schedule, and it'll go to the next available post spot that you have. And also to mention that, guys, once you build a content bank, 9 posts is actually quite a bit. Once you start to build on this bank and build on the amount that you're adding, that's still quite a lot of posts.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just going to show you one thing that is new. Now, we were just working on it today, so hopefully this will work. So just to show you some of the things you can now do with the imagery, click on the pencil icon here, and we have a new editor. I'm not sure if you've seen this yet. So we can crop, you can resize, you can add markup, text.
Just got a bit fancy, didn't you?
Things around. So lots of cool things to sort of just start building up that content. Now, again, at the moment on this step, it's still just content. It's a library of images, hashtags, and quotes. And so now what we need to do is build campaign. Now, once you've built it, you can go back here if you need to edit things, but mostly you'll be able to do everything in the next step. So now I can build this campaign based on the content that I've chosen, and bam. Now what we've got are those 9 social posts ready for me to scroll through. So we've got some simple controls here, left and right, so I can go through day 0, day 3, and I'm scrolling through and looking now at, basically now in the mode, in the mode of reviewing what is going to be sent out based on the content that I've approved. And so we can look at these individually. So let's look at this, click into it, make edits. So as you would expect, super easy, no need to save, it saves it automatically. This is an image that we've generated. Now this is a simple example, but you can change your branding with your logo, color scheme, you can put background photos on it, you can pretty much do most things there. But even though this is an image, you can actually edit the content in here. So we can say, well, look, I need an exclamation mark in there because I love exclamation marks. And then that will regenerate and turn itself into an image again. Because we've chosen those quotes before, we can actually click the dot, dot, dot here. And we can, if you watch this bit here, we can actually cycle through those quotes. So we can just get the right one that's perfect for us. And just the same with this quote bubble here, we can cycle through the quotes to get the one that works for us. Or as I showed before, we just completely make it manual ourselves and put something else in. Or go straight for an image. And there's the image that I put before. Or we can say on day 14, I don't want any image at all. I just want a nice bit of simple text. I just want to hit home a quote or a point or whatever it might be. So you've got real sort of flexibility to sort of do this. Now, by default, so in this example, I think I've got 3 social profiles connected. So if I approve this, it will go out to 3 social profiles. By default, we're editing for all social profiles. So if I approve this, day 14 for all 3 of those social profiles will look like this. Whereas if you want to, you can actually edit individually. So I might say, well, actually for the Facebook page, I want to do something special for FB, for Facebook, but for Twitter and the other one, actually it's going to be the default. So you've, again, got that granular control if you need it, and not if you don't want to. Yeah, without wanting to go into too much detail, the extra things you might want to do, we republish to Medium, which is a really cool little extra value add to do as well. So this only works if you haven't already published your blog post on Medium, but let's assume you're on WordPress or something else. As well as activating a social campaign, if you activate this little toggle here and make it go green, we will republish the original blog post. So not the social media content, but the full blog post on Medium, which just opens it up to another sort of discovery engine, if you will. And don't worry, from an SEO standpoint, we send a tag over to Medium that shows that the original blog post is the original authority, and so search engines honor that and like it, so it's a totally safe thing to do.
Need to note that's draft on Medium. Okay, yeah, cool. It's always come down. So Medium is a blogging platform that allows people to be able to share your content. Ben's going over, beautiful. If you go to mine, Ben, too, you'll see some of the posts I brought over from Missing Lettr too.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it'll be under Linda Reed-Enever. It's not nothing changes. But I bring my posts over from Missing Lettr. There you go. There's me.
Ooh, which one? Which one? Let's try the top one.
I think it'll be the blue one.
Cool. Yeah. So it's a blogging engine at its core, But as you saw from the homepage, it's also a kind of a magazine format. So if someone's reading something political, they might then, like on Amazon, they would have recommended posts based on that tag. And so it's a way of discovering other people's blog posts because they're part of that sort of ecosystem. So people can follow topics and everything else. So it's worth doing. Like it's, as with anything in marketing, it's not like the one thing that's going to, you know, boost your sort of your traffic and everything else, but it's a part of that jigsaw that will just give you that extra sort of traction.
And it goes through, guys, it goes through to draft, so you can go in and improve them a couple of days later, give it a time so you're not flooding the internet in two spots. I'm a big fan of that. But where Ben was showing you, my posts have literally come from, my Medium posts come from Missing Lettr.
And so yeah, we just put it in draft form just so that just in case you want to just edit it, and then yeah, you publish it in Medium, and that goes that way. One other thing that is new in this, because this for people who are new here, this is going to look like normal because this is the first time we've seen it. But this new campaign editor only came into existence about sort of a month and a half ago. So one of the new things we brought in as well is this update reminder facility. And again, with this idea of what are some of the things that we can take away from this talk today that are universal, that don't need you to use Missing Lettr or anything else. One of those for me is, again, it's about that habit around, not for every blog post necessarily, but for some of the higher value, and certainly for the definitive guides that you might be writing, things that are either based on a particular time, so that it might be Twitter banners in 2020, and you know, something that needs to be updated because it's a time sensitive one, or things that are, you know, my definitive guide on dog grooming or whatever it might be. Like, but by committing to that style of blog post, you really need to be keeping it up to date. And search engines, irrespective of whether it is literally an epic guide or definitive guide or anything else, they love it when people come back and update past blog posts. So it's not just about publishing new blog posts after new blog posts after new blog posts. Keep doing that, but also have half an eye on going back to your old stuff. So one very, very simple thing that we've done, because we know the blog post that you're publishing, we know literally the date and time that it was published, you can activate this update reminder. And so in 6 months' time, and in the future, we'll give you the option to choose when that frequency is. We will simply send you a simple email to say, hey, you told us to remind you 6 months ago you published this blog post. If you have a chance, you might want to head back now and just update something, you know, update it with, you know, the latest news or topical sort of information to do with it. So really simple, but just a sort of that habit sort of forming sort of piece again. And that's basically it. Once you approve or launch the campaign, as the button says, we will then basically schedule it into your calendar. I won't bother showing it, but it's basically your content calendar that only holds the stuff that you've approved. So you can kind of have a keen eye on what's due to go out when, and from there you can obviously edit them individually and create new ones as well that have nothing to do with the campaign. So you can do all of that there. And as time goes on, you'll want to then head over to the analytics as well. So you can actually, that won't have anything because it's a test account, but you can actually keep an eye on, let me just show that quickly, keep an eye on how the campaigns are actually performing, how many clicks they've generated, which social accounts have generated the most clicks. So in this particular example, 76% of the clicks come from Twitter in this particular time frame. So it might help you understand where you need to apply a bit more attention. A bit more pro, and you probably won't care about clicks. You probably shouldn't be caring about the totality of the clicks until you've approved a good few campaigns. But it's worth having it there because it's good to look back on.
Good
so that's basically Missing Lettr. I want to talk about Postbox just briefly.
Absolutely.
But is there anything on Missing Lettr, that kind of the core sort of campaigns and any sort of queries that people might have around how to get the most out of blog posts and promoting them, and any sort of strategies that might be useful? Any questions there at all, Linda?
Any questions, guys? Feel free to ask. Just ask us.
I'm going to take that as a no.
We'll take that as a no and then move into Postbox. So we're now showing you guys why Ben's getting into Postbox, showing you guys how to move your content. So take that blog post and take some of that 80% of stress away. Looks very easy for you to use. Fiona can't wait to explore. It is a very easy. It was easy to use to begin with, but Ben and his team have gone a long way in making sure that this is even easier to use. Platform. So I've gone through and shown you how to take your blog posts and to convert them into content. Now Ben's going to show you how you can take your blog posts and have other people convert them into content, but also support that content. So when we were talking today about having that other people's content component, having that other people's content come into your newsfeed as well and building your credibility that way.
Yeah, absolutely. So for the last 3.5 years, the focus has been on what we've just been showing you, which is I've published a blog post. How can I then create my own social sort of campaign, my own sort of strategy around sharing it with my own audience? But it's kind of been frustrating me throughout that time that there's a whole other side of that coin that we haven't really addressed, which is how can we get other people, or what are the other things that we might want to do with that blog post to get it into an even wider audience? And that's precisely what Postbox does. So you'll see a lovely little Postbox icon. Not particularly inventive, but I think it plays nicely with a Missing Lettr.
It's a Postbox?
Yeah, no, it's nice enough. I quite like it. And so here we are with Postbox. It does two things. And if you see these sort of animations sort of switching between, it alternates between the words, it kind of tells us very, very clearly what it does. So one is it finds the best audience for your content. So whether that content is a blog post, an infographic, a video, the job of Postbox is to find the best audience for it. And then secondly, and this is the engagement piece, it helps you find the best content for your audience, and just accepting that actually there might be some really, really great, valuable content within my industry that other people have written that I might want to share with my audience. And so it does both of those things. And so what we're looking at here are these two boxes. Can you see my mouse, by the way, or is it just...
Yep, we can see mouse.
Okay, cool. So these two sections here represent those two sides of the coin. The I want to promote something and add it to the library so other people can share it, and the engagement piece, which is I want to share other people's content with my audience. So let's look at in fact, let's start off with, can I open the test one? Yeah, let's start off with a blank slate. Because it's kind of fun to see how this sort of builds up. Because the first thing you'll want to decide is what are the categories and the topics that I care about, or that I know that my audience cares about. And it's both what I write about, but also what I like to share. And they might be different things, and that's fine. Like you might broadly like to share things to do with marketing, but specifically you might want to talk about social media marketing, and that's fine. That's fine. So what you're doing when you set up your Postbox profile is just thinking broadly like that, and it's what drives the recommendations that we can provide in terms of things that you might want to share, as well as the defaults that we set up when you want to promote things. So what's really unique about this product is that, unlike with, I hate to compare with others because I kind of like to be a lone wolf, but just briefly, when you think about things like Q Promote, it's a lot more hidden. And here, one thing we're trying to do is sort of bring it all together so that the information is a lot more front and center. So you're actually empowered to know what is valuable, what actually might nudge the needle a little bit. So we have this really key, important metric called potential audience. And if you've done anything on Facebook ads at all, or any sort of other social network advert system, you will be quite familiar with that metric. This idea of, in Facebook they have that sort of tactometer or whatever it's called, with this little thing that show you this is your potential audience, and it's always a huge number, but it's a good barometer to help you understand, based on your demographics and your criteria, the potential audience you might be able to reach. And so we have a similar thing here. And again, this is layered on the fact that, and benefiting from the fact that we have a huge number of content already going through the Missing Lettr platform, and all of those social profiles are connected. So when someone signs up to Postbox, we are able to glean from their accounts that we already have what their social audience is, and so we add that to the overall pot. And so my potential audience at the moment is 0. So let's just add a few things, and it will make more sense now when I do this. Now I know these are broad things here, so I'm going to do marketing. Now there's 1.82 million in that potential audience. Let's add, we'll just stick with that there, and let's do blogging. And we can do English. You'll see that my potential audience, my combined potential audience, has now gone up to 1.61 million. Now, what this means, this is not I wish it was, but it's not 1.61 million Postbox users. It's the collective or social audience that our Postbox users represent for those specific categories. And it's just it's not a guarantee that you click share and it's going to go to those 1.61 million. It's just saying, hey, there's a world of audience out there that care about that content. That if you write the right content and the right people share it within Postbox, there's a potentially large audience that might want to share it. So what is that profile? So having done that, we now, did I save that?
I think you did.
Oh, my mouse has gone a bit funny. My mouse has gone funny. So we now have some suggestions. So we have a bunch of things here that I might want to share with my audience, and then some suggestions around things that I might want to promote, or actually I think these are drafts that I created before. So let's start off, and you're not controlling my mouse, are you, Linda?
No, I've not got control of your mouse.
Yes, my mouse is
delayed.
So weird. Sorry guys, my mouse, it feels like it's upside down, but it's not. It's so weird.
It wants to go to bed, Ben.
I know, what is going on?
It's Australian time.
I know. Must be. Like, you know how they say when on the different hemispheres that the toilet water goes round the other way, or the drain, maybe it's that, maybe it's trying to go upside down so it can, let's see. Okay, God, this is weird. Okay.
I'm laughing in the nicest supportive way, you realise.
I know. Okay, so I'm just going to briefly this.
Training, guys, it's awesome.
Turning into a bit of an instructional thing, which I really don't want it to do. But so I'm going to just create a quick post. I'm not going to publish it, but just going to create a quick post to show you what it does there. So we're going to click the plus. First thing we're going to ask you is, what are you trying to promote? Is it a blog post from a previous Missing Lettr campaign? Because if you already use Missing Lettr, we already know about that. And the great thing about previous campaigns, like the one I just showed you, is that you've already approved social content. And what's more is we already know, if that campaign's been running for a while, which campaigns and which social contents, social posts have actually generated the most clicks for you. So we can actually start recommending and reusing that content to then add to the library. Or you just want to share any other content and you basically want to start from scratch. So let's just choose from, we'll choose a previous campaign. Let's have a look. So we'll do what's in the blog. I think that's yours, isn't it, Linda?
Oh, there's my article.
What's in the blog, and then it's got the social posts within that campaign that we approved. And let's say we really like this one. So I'm going to click that, and that's now going to go into the Postbox editor, which looks similar to the campaign editor we looked at before. So there's a bit of familiarity there, but somewhat different. So we don't have days to think about here. We're not creating a campaign. We're literally creating one post, albeit we can change different versions for Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, because you might want to. And actually, I would recommend, what you're thinking about here is you're not creating something that you are going to share. You're creating something that you want other people to want to share. And so for the first point, you want to make sure that, this is probably a bad example because out of context, this might look a bit. So I would definitely want to just edit this a little bit. You want to make it endearing, but also you want to talk about it from their perspective. So you don't say something I've just published, because the person sharing it didn't just publish it, and that's going to stop them from wanting to share it. So try and put yourself in their mind. So think about how that might look and feel, and you've got some similar controls. So we can do an image, we can do a quote bubble, and you can change the theme if you need to, or we can do an image, or we can do no image at all. So you've got similar. Save that. Or we can do no image at all. Same sort of controls, so we can click in, we can edit. And down here we've got the audience settings, so it's defaulted to the to the profile settings I set up before. It's also pulled in the hashtags that we entered in here. So as you're writing hashtags, it will pull them in. So if I do, well, that's not a hashtag, is it? Let's not do that.
You got rid of it all.
My keyboard is going funny as well. Let's do, actually writing is already there. Yeah, do writing and then click out and you'll see
content marketing.
It'll add writing in there. So anyway, it hopefully saves a bit of time there. And just like with the main profile, as you are defining your audience settings, you'll see your potential audience go up, hopefully. Give it a title, something that the title is not something that will go out to the social audience. So it's something that will be seen in Postbox in the library. So it's something that will identify the thing that you're sharing. It typically will be the title of your blog post. And then this is the URL that you're sharing. Which should normally be your full URL. We will shorten it later so that we can track the clicks for you. But because this is a post from a Missing Lettr campaign that in itself was already shortened, if that makes sense, getting a bit insular here, effectively the URL we're sharing is already a shortened URL, but ordinarily it would be a full URL, but it doesn't really matter either way. And once you're happy, you click publish. And that will, I won't publish it because we've already got this one in the library. That will then go into the library. It will go into a learning mode, so very similar to sort of the Facebook sort of approach, which usually lasts for about 24 hours, where we're just kind of just making sure that we've optimized it properly and we're linking it with the right people. But it's also kind of just an opportunity for us to sort of second check it and learn a little bit ourselves whilst we sort of launch this new product. But essentially that's now in your active list. And you can track how many shares, how many clicks it's got. You can see the total shares, total clicks up here. And then that brings us to the engage area. So this is now where you want to share other people's content and where your content will appear for other people based on the criteria that they've set up. So a few things we can do here. First of all, if we just know that that is not right for me, just click the down thing. That won't penalize the other person. It's just like your own diary system. It will remove that from there. So if you're systematically going through to say share, don't share, share, don't share, it's just a way of getting it off your list, which is quite nice. If you want to just actually look at the original source, just click that link button and that will take you through to the original website, which is, you know, because some people just look at the tweets that they've posted and the title and are happy with that. Others like to really sort of look at the content and then, as I said before, provide some commentary on it and do some other things. My mouse is going weird. Click the ... and we can see what it actually was going to look like socially. So this is the thing we were talking about before, Linda. So click the preview and we can see what it's going to look like on Facebook, what it's going to look like on Twitter. Now this person hasn't done anything different for each one, which is absolutely fine. There's an opportunity to make it slightly longer for Facebook and LinkedIn, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to. It's something that you might want to experiment with. I would argue that in this particular example, I don't know who this person is, that they've literally just put the title and the link there. You might want to, you know, take a bit more time to add it. Because once it's in the library, it's in the library, and you know that's your chance to do it really. Once you're happy, click click the share button, if I can get it. This is so strange. And because you've already connected your social profiles, we've already got them there. So you just choose the ones that you don't want, I should say, because by default we'll send them all. So just choose the ones that you don't want, click schedule, and then that will add to your calendar so that you will essentially see your Missing Lettr campaign content along with your engagement content. And from the calendar, you can move them around just like you can do with the other ones, and you can edit them should you want to. And at any time you can see in here the scheduled ones that are due to be sent. There's nothing that I've got due to be sent. And there's other things like, you know, you can drill down into sort of sub niches by clicking the filter button here. So based on your categories and topics, you might want to just look at blogging or just look at some other ones, and we'll provide a new list for you. But yeah, that's basically it. A really, really simple but powerful way to discover content to share, but also a platform to share your own content and get a sort of a wider audience.
Okay.
But yeah, we've been going for 2 weeks. And so if you do take advantage of this deal, keep in touch. Like, let us know what's working for you, what's not. Believe me, just even in the last few days, this is demonstrably different than it was just a few days ago. So we're listening so intently to how people are using it and everything else. So yeah, you all seem like good people to provide some good feedback. So let us know.
They are a pretty good bunch of people. Hey, Ben, can I add a suggestion feature in the middle of my webinar? Because, you know, it wouldn't be a webinar that we've done unless I add it in the middle of the webinar. It would be awesome if we could follow people's post boxes. So say, for example, we could I could follow at least my marketing circle members and that sort of stuff. That would be awesome. And yes, Louise is right. The Facebook group is awesome, and it does provide so much help inside that space. And you take on the advice and you run with that really, really well.
Cool.
But yeah, you know me, I wouldn't be a webinar if I didn't say, hey, can we have that down the track?
You'll be pleased to know that is on the list. At the moment, sharing other people's content is entirely manual from your standpoint. That you need to, we will recommend content based on your criteria, but you need to click the share button. In the next week, you'll have the ability to choose, if you want to, it's totally optional, individual categories or topics or combinations that you want to have automatically scheduled for you. And if you want to, you can bake in a lead time. So just for peace of mind, you might say, I want to, anything that's tagged with blogging, I want to have automatically scheduled, but no sooner than 3 days time. And then I want Missing Lettr to email me the list 2 days before, so that I can always have an opportunity just to double check. So we'll always bake in those controls should you want to. And a part of that, as someone recommended on the Facebook group today, was the ability, as you said, Linda, to follow specific people so
Yep.
that specific people's content is either recommended for you or automatically scheduled for you, so that you can really, as you said, sort of share your sort of network of people's content, which is a really powerful way of just sort of spreading the love.
Let's get you off share screen so that everyone can, so we can see
Maybe
everyone and you can see everyone. And we'll come through. Kylie's asked the question. I'm just going to pop the offer in. The auto sharing would be awesome if you can have it for people that you want to follow. Yeah, I agree. And that takes away my concern, Ben, about the scheduling. If we've got a 3 days or even a 7 day heads up to go and approve that stuff, then yes, I would be in for that auto posting stuff as well. So there you go.
Awesome.
There's my answer to that question. Because that's, you know, I'm just a publicist by trade, and you know, I always want to check that stuff, and I would be suggesting the same thing to you guys. Don't automatically fill your feed, because once again, we don't want to have something going out to our market that is not in line with our message, and that's really, really huge. Okay, so Kylie's asked a question about how long is the offer available for. At this stage, Ben and I are testing it. Shall we say 30 days, Ben? Are we happy with that? We're going to leave it open to 30 days? Yep. Okay. Because it is a massive discount, guys. You're getting this will be your lifetime renewal from $49 a year rather than $49 a month to add stuff. And it's US dollars, please, before anyone comes up.
Yes, I should say
that.
Says,
US dollars. Say it was US dollars, Linda.
I wish it could be British pounds, but I can't do that across the world. So annoyingly, I've had to land on the US dollars. So sorry to be. None of us are US dollar people, but there we go. But yeah, exactly. It's usually $49 a month to the public. So this is $49 for an entire year, and that price, if you take advantage of it, will be locked in every year. Now you don't have to renew every year if you don't want to, but if you do renew, it will be every. So we're not going to catch you and say after the first year it's now straight to the $49 a month. It will be $49 every year, for as long as you care to use it. So hopefully that's...
Still need Missing Lettr. So you still need to have a Missing Lettr account, and Ben's brought back the free plan. Aren't you lovely, Ben?
Yeah, so we have a free plan. So it's worth noting that so there's two bits we saw in Postbox. The bit where you promote and you add your own stuff to the library. Although you do need a Missing Lettr plan to use the platform or access the platform, the free plan will be perfectly fine for that, because you know the Postbox deal we have here will let you add 10 a month, and that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
But when you want to then share other people's content, we then need to use the scheduler that Missing Lettr uses, so sending out to social accounts and everything else. And so that's where your base Missing Lettr plan will dictate. But as Linda said, with the launch of Postbox 2 weeks ago, we also decided to bring back our free plan. So for the majority, you can basically, with the free plan, you can schedule 50 posts at any given time, or have 50 posts scheduled.
And that's a mix of your stuff and stuff from Postbox.
So when you approve a campaign, or if you share other people's things, you can have at any given time, you can have 50 posts scheduled into your calendar, basically.
Yeah. Okay. And Ben, I don't know your pricing off the top of my head anymore. The free plan's good. Look, we're using we're on team. Oh, we're on an old one. I'm not even going to say what my plan is.
On the name as well.
I think you've changed your plan since that time. I do have a pricing tab. Yeah, well, you know, got in early, didn't I? Okay, exactly. Your solo plan, guys, is $4.50. Bear with me, not $4.50, is $9 US a month. Your pro plan is $39 US a month as well. It will help you be able to get through that area, to be able to move your posts up, move your content up, and move those things out there. And then there's, for people that are crazy like us, I think we're on what's called the agency plan now, which has got a massively ridiculous amount of posts that you share. But that's because we run 5 websites, and no one needs to be doing that, in addition to the extra 2 that we're about to bring out. Is Postbox working well? Look, some of the questions about content and those sorts of things, Postbox is 2 weeks old. It's being filled, and I'm going to say this for Ben now, it's being filled as it grows. You know, we only got access, the beta testers and all of the existing Missing Lettr users only got access 2 weeks ago to be able to use it. It's going to be like everything. It's what people put into it. So if we active, you know, for those of us who are already in there and we're acting and we're putting our content in, that's going to help, and that's going to help share it. Is it working well for businesses that are in Australian operation only? Social media doesn't care where you are. It does slightly, but you can't target. It's not like a Facebook ads component where with this sort of stuff, we're asking people to share our content. Facebook ads, yes, we can restrict our locations and we can restrict all of those sorts of things. But, you know, it's no different to someone in your newsfeed, someone seeing something in your newsfeed and wanting to share it out another area. Ben, I don't know what your user stats are, but I know there's just even looking at the group here, there is a number of people that are Missing Lettr users from time. So I'm just sitting here going, well, there's enough. Even here, there's a number of users, let alone the the guys inside BBB. So it's up to you. Fiona, you're welcome. You're very welcome. So look, maybe you're able to ask questions, but the content you put in, I'm going to put it to you this way: if you did nothing else but the free account, and you added 10 posts a month for $49 a year, and you maybe then selected another couple of posts, other people's content stuff to go out for $49 a year, and just added it to what you were already doing, you will save yourself so much time in just searching for the content. Okay? Just so even if you went, okay, no, I still want to do everything else organically, but I just want to add some articles. And then you might find that you're adding some articles from Ben, or you're adding some articles from myself, or you're adding some articles from the experts and the leaders within your field throughout that library. It just think about it. You only have to check in. It's a 5-minute marketing. It's a 5-minute marketing thing, Ben. We're going to do a podcast episode on that one. But it's a 5-minute marketing activity about sharing other people's content.
And if you happen to write about cats and knitting, I will give you the plan for free, because we will need to seed those topics with
the content. Ben, in my audience, we might actually have that conversation.
I'm just giving away too much.
Dawn would totally do that.
I was going to say it's Dawn.
Dawn would totally write that article.
Dawn would totally do it.
What, the Venn diagram crossover between cats and knitting, you mean? Or
yeah, exactly.
Or two separate articles?
No, she has both cats and knitting.
Okay, that's brilliant.
Fiona said we should sign up for 2 Greyhounds accounts. How many Greyhounds? So, why are you here, Ben? Are you happy to do a bit of a free-for-all questions on social content? Yeah, sure. Ask Fiona. Tell us what your accounts are. You guys are here. This is the opportunity of turning live.
Yeah, no, that was just a joke.
Account is.
No, I've got 2 Greyhounds. They're on Instagram at Sir Linus and Super Riley. I'm a stage mother. I've got 2 other businesses. So a private home care business, Lux Care, and an aged care consulting.
Yes, I remember you now.
Yeah, so I've found this really fantastic. It's been great.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah.
Pinterest in the pipeline anytime soon?
It's one of those things where both Pinterest and Instagram, we actually have the code written. We had the code written 2 years ago.
Approval.
And so it would need testing again, because APIs have probably changed, but we're probably no more than 24 hours away from having it live, except for the fact that we need to be indoctrinated, sort of accepted into this sort of elitist partner program that these 2 companies run. They're not like Twitter and Facebook, albeit Instagram is owned by Facebook, and LinkedIn, where you can kind of just sign up as a developer and use that platform. And yes, in all 3 of those, we've got enhanced privileges because we've been using, we're strong partners with them. But we really need to be let into their club with Pinterest and Instagram. And
can we help?
I'm hopeful that we will be there soon. But it's
Cara Lambert's saying on live she loves Postbox and please get Pinterest, and we're just opposed saying can we help if we
can. I know,
can?
it's crying out. It really is crying out for it. Yeah, we are plugging away, and I'm hopeful that we'll get there. But it's diplomacy, it's red tape, it's kind of all that sort of boring stuff.
I can see, especially with Postbox, Pinterest, the ability to be able to make valuable Pinterest boards incredibly well.
Absolutely, definitely.
Okay.
Cool.
Any questions, guys? Any social scheduling, content, Twitter questions that you would like to ask Ben? It's a quiet room.
Don't worry if not. That's perfectly fine. That just maybe means I've answered things, or maybe means I've just sufficiently confused you so that you have no idea what to ask next.
is there going to be the option so that when you use Postbox that it'll bring the post in, but we can add a comment to it? So like, you know how on Twitter you retweet something, but you add a comment so that it, you know, the people know that you've actually looked at the stuff?
Yes. Right now, no. You just share what the other people have created, but 100% yes, probably will be ready in about a week's time.
Proud coach there, Louise.
I like to add my own comment to the thing before.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's so funny because this is the power of actually engaging with, in my case, with the potential audience and having that feedback, because it's one of those things that was an oversight when we sort of were building it and launching it, and then you start engaging with people and asking them how they are planning to use it, and it comes up, and of course you want to be able to edit it. So yes, it's absolutely at the top of our list, and it'll be done in a few days.
Hi, Jane. Well, guys, I hope you've had a great session. Ben, thank you for joining us, and thank you for being my first Marketing with Impact guest. It's been great to have a bit of a conversation. Guys, check out Postbox, have a look at it, and have a great day. I will see you all around. And